In early October of 1347, a small fleet of trading ships arrived at the harbor of Messina, on the coast of Sicily. They had come from the Black Sea, carrying the ordinary cargo of medieval Mediterranean commerce: grain, textiles, spices. When the harbor officials went aboard, they found something else. Most of the crew were already dead. The ones still alive were covered in black swellings at the neck, the armpit, and the groin, and they were bleeding under the skin. The authorities in Messina understood enough to be terrified. They ordered the ships out of the harbor immediately. It made no difference. Whatever had come off those ships was already ashore, and over the next 4 years, it moved through Europe faster than any army in history. By 1351, it had reached Ireland in the west, Norway in the north, and Russia in the east, and somewhere between 25 and 50 million people were dead. In many regions, between a third and a half of the entire population died within 18 months. Villages were abandoned permanently. Whole family lines ended. It was the single largest demographic catastrophe in recorded European history, and for the next 600 years, the blame for it was placed, almost universally, on one animal. That animal is not extinct. It is not rare. It is not confined to some distant wilderness. It is, at this moment, living in enormous numbers in every major city on Earth, including yours, in the walls and under the streets and behind the restaurants, and most of us walk past thousands of them a week without ever seeing one. This is the story of the rat, which has been credited with killing more human beings than every war ever fought, which turns out to be more complicated than that, and which has also, quietly, saved more lives than almost any other animal alive. That was 1347. But the relationship starts thousands of years earlier, and it starts because of something we built. To understand any of it, you have to start with the animal itself, because a rat is a genuinely extraordinary piece of biological engineering, and almost nobody gives it credit. There are 2 species that matter here. The black rat, Rattus rattus, originated in the Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia. It is smaller, an excellent climber, and it prefers to live above ground, in roofs and rafters and ship rigging. The brown rat, Rattus norvegicus, despite the name, came from northern China and Mongolia. It is larger, heavier, a superb swimmer and burrower, and it prefers basements, sewers, and ground level. The brown rat reached Europe much later, around the 18th century, and when it arrived, it systematically displaced the black rat across most of the continent. Almost every rat in a modern Western city is a brown rat. What both of them share is a set of capabilities that reads like a list of design specifications for surviving anything. A rat's incisors never stop growing. They grow at a rate of several inches per year, which means the animal is physically compelled to gnaw constantly just to keep its own teeth from killing it. Those teeth are harder than iron on the standard mineral hardness scale, and rats have been documented gnawing through lead sheeting, aluminum, cinder block, and in some cases, concrete that has not fully cured. A rat's skeleton is not rigid in the way ours is. Its ribs are hinged, and its skull is the only part that will not compress, which means that if a rat can get its head through a gap, the rest of the body follows. For an adult brown rat, that gap is roughly the size of a quarter. A rat can tread water for around 3 days. It can survive a fall of many stories. It can swim through a sewer line and come up a toilet, which is not an urban legend, and it happens often enough that plumbers have a standard procedure for it. Then there is the reproduction, which is where the numbers become difficult to process. A female brown rat reaches sexual maturity at around 5 weeks. Her gestation period is about 3 weeks. She can produce 5 to 12 litters in a year, with 6 to 12 pups in each. She can become pregnant again within a day of giving birth. Run that forward under ideal conditions with no predation and no disease, and a single breeding pair can theoretically produce a population in the thousands within 12 months. Ideal conditions never actually happen, which is the only reason we are not already buried. but it explains why rat control has never once succeeded permanently anywhere on Earth. And they are intelligent in ways that make them extremely difficult to kill. Rats exhibit strong neophobia, which is a specific fear of new objects in a familiar environment. Put a new trap in a place a rat colony uses daily, and the rats will avoid that entire area, sometimes for days, before anything approaches it. They learn from each other. If one rat eats a poisoned bait and becomes sick, the others will avoid that bait, and in some cases, avoid that entire food type. Rats will send subordinate individuals to sample unfamiliar food first. They map their territory in 3 dimensions and remember it. They can solve mazes that stump other mammals. Everything about the animal is optimized for one thing, which is living successfully in an environment that is actively trying to destroy it. But here is the part that reframes the entire story. Rats did not invade our world. We built theirs. Rats are what biologists call a commensal species, meaning they live off us specifically. Before agriculture, rats existed as ordinary, unremarkable wild rodents in limited ranges in Asia. Then human beings started farming, and farming produced something that had never existed on Earth before, which was a large quantity of dry, storable, high-calorie food gathered into one protected place and left there. A grain store is, from a rat's perspective, an ecosystem with unlimited food, no weather, and no predators. Everything after that follows automatically. Rats spread along every trade route humans ever built, and above all, they spread by ship. A wooden sailing vessel is close to a perfect rat habitat. Food in the hold, water, dark spaces, no way for anything to hunt them, and a guaranteed ride to somewhere new. Black rats moved through the Roman Mediterranean, then through medieval trade networks, then across the Atlantic with European colonization, then everywhere else. Today, rats live on every continent except Antarctica and on a very large share of the world's islands. They achieved global distribution before we did, and they did it entirely by hitchhiking, which brings us back to those ships at Messina. The disease was Yersinia pestis, a bacterium that was not identified until Alexandre Yersin isolated it in Hong Kong in 1894, 5.5 centuries after the Black Death. It causes plague in 3 forms. Bubonic plague, the most common, produces the swollen lymph nodes that gave the disease its name and killed somewhere between 30 and 60% of untreated cases. Septicemic plague, where the bacterium enters the bloodstream directly, was close to universally fatal. Pneumonic plague, which infects the lungs, spreads directly from person to person through the air and was fatal in essentially every untreated case, often within days. And Yersinia pestis did not strike once. It struck in 3 enormous pandemics. The first, traditionally called the Plague of Justinian, hit the Byzantine Empire and the Mediterranean world beginning in 541 and recurred for 2 centuries afterward. Contemporary accounts describe catastrophic mortality, though modern historians now argue seriously about how severe it actually was, with some recent work suggesting the traditional figures were substantially inflated. The second was the Black Death and the 4 centuries of recurring outbreaks that followed it, including the Great Plague of London in 1665. The third began in China's Yunnan province in the mid-1800s, reached Hong Kong in 1894, and was carried by steamship to every inhabited continent, killing around 12 million people in India and China alone, and establishing permanent plague reservoirs in wild rodent populations on multiple continents, including the American West, where a small number of human cases still occur every single year. Add those together, and the total human death toll attributable to a single bacterium runs into the hundreds of millions across recorded history. For comparison, the Second World War, the deadliest conflict humans have ever fought, killed somewhere between 70 and 85 million people. The First World War killed around 20 million. Plague, across its 3 pandemics, plausibly exceeds every major war of the 20th century combined. And for 6 centuries, The animal we held responsible was the rat. Which brings us to the part of this story that has quietly overturned in the last decade or so, and it is genuinely one of the strangest reversals in the history of epidemiology. If you're finding this interesting, take a second and subscribe, because there is a new deep dive like this every week, and the next one is already coming. The standard model of the Black Death goes like this. A flea bites an infected rat. The rat dies. The flea jumps to a human. The human is infected. Repeat. It is clean. It is memorable. And it is what almost everyone was taught. The problem is that when researchers began modeling the actual mortality data from the Black Death against that mechanism, the numbers refused to cooperate. Rat-flea transmission produces a characteristic epidemic curve, with a delay while the rat population dies off first, followed by a specific rate of spread. The Black Death moved faster than that model allows, and its mortality curves in city after city look wrong for a rat-driven outbreak. A significant 2018 study modeling 9 European cities found that in most of them, human ectoparasites, meaning human fleas and body lice living on people and in their clothing and bedding, fit the observed mortality patterns considerably better than rats and rat fleas did. Then there is the geography, which is harder to argue with. The Black Death tore through Norway, Iceland, and northern Russia. Iceland in particular had no established black rat population at all, and it still suffered devastating plague outbreaks. The disease also spread aggressively through European winters, when fleas on rats are least active and rat populations are lowest. It moved through regions where black rats were scarce, and it moved at a speed that tracks human travel routes almost exactly, not rodent dispersal. None of this fully exonerates the rat. The third pandemic in the 19th and 20th centuries was very clearly rat-driven, documented in real time by people who could see it happening, and rats are unquestionably a reservoir species for plague to this day. But the specific catastrophe that defines the rat in the Western imagination, the one event that made this animal a symbol of filth and death for 700 years, may have been driven substantially by parasites living on human bodies and in human clothing, which means that for 6 centuries, we may have been blaming an animal for a disease we were largely giving to each other. That would be a satisfying place to end the accusation, except that the rat has an extensive record without the plague. Rodents destroy a significant portion of stored food worldwide every year, through consumption and, far more damagingly, through contamination, because a rat urinates more or less constantly as it moves and will spoil vastly more grain than it eats. In parts of the world where food security is marginal, that difference is measured in human lives. Rats also carry a serious roster of other diseases. Leptospirosis, which is transmitted through rat urine and causes kidney and liver failure, infects a large number of people globally every year and kills tens of thousands. Hantavirus, murine typhus, salmonella, rat bite fever. In dense urban environments with poor sanitation, rats are a genuine and continuous public health problem, entirely separate from anything to do with the 14th century. And then there is the ecological damage, which is where the case against the rat becomes overwhelming. When ships carried rats to islands, they arrived in ecosystems that had evolved with no ground predators at all. Island birds nested on the ground because nothing had ever eaten their eggs. Island reptiles and invertebrates had no defenses. Rats went through those systems like fire. Invasive rats are implicated in a substantial share of all recorded island bird and reptile extinctions, and the pattern repeats identically across the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Indian Ocean, and the Caribbean. On Lord Howe Island, off Australia, a single ship ran aground in 1918, and the rats that came ashore drove multiple bird species to extinction within a decade. That is not disputed, and it is not exaggerated. In terms of species eliminated, the rat is one of the most destructive animals humans have ever transported anywhere. So people fought back, and the history of that fight is a study in how badly humans handle this particular animal. rat catching became a recognized profession across medieval and early modern Europe, and by the Victorian era, it was a fixture of urban life. Jack Black, who worked as rat catcher to Queen Victoria, was a genuine London celebrity, and he supplemented his income by selling live captured rats to public houses, where they were used for rat baiting. Rat baiting was a spectator sport in which a terrier was released into a pit containing dozens or hundreds of rats, and bets were placed on how many it could kill and how fast. It drew large paying crowds in London for decades. That is what the relationship looked like, an animal so hated that killing it in bulk was entertainment. The most instructive failure came from colonial Hanoi in 1902. The French administration had built a modern sewer system in the European quarter of the city, and it functioned exactly as intended, except that it also functioned as an ideal rat highway connecting the entire district. Faced with an enormous rat population living inside their new infrastructure, the authorities introduced a bounty. To claim it, you did not need to produce the whole rat, you needed to produce the tail. What happened next is now taught as a textbook example of a badly designed incentive. Officials began encountering large numbers of live, tailless rats in the city. People had worked out that a rat with its tail removed and released could go on to breed more rats, which meant more tails. Some enterprising residents skipped the hunting entirely and began farming rats specifically to harvest tails. The government had accidentally created an economic reason for the population of Hanoi to increase the number of rats in Hanoi. The program was abandoned. And then, in one of the sharpest reversals in the history of our relationship with any species, the rat became one of the most important animals in the world. In the 19th century, researchers looking for a small, cheap, fast-breeding mammal for laboratory work settled on the brown rat, the same species that had been hunted in pits for sport. Domesticated rat lines were established, and in 1906, the Wistar Institute in Philadelphia produced the Wistar rat, the first standardized laboratory animal strain in history. A genetically consistent animal meant that experiments run in different labs in different countries could actually be compared, which is a precondition for modern medical research working at all. An enormous proportion of laboratory rats alive today descend from those Wistar lines. What followed is difficult to overstate. Rats were central to the development of our understanding of insulin and diabetes, of vitamins and nutrition, of cancer biology, of cardiovascular disease, of anesthesia, of antidepressants and antipsychotics, of addiction, of memory and learning, and of essentially the entire field of behavioral psychology. If you have ever taken a prescription medication, it was tested on rats before it was tested on you. The animal blamed for one of the largest death tolls in human history has been instrumental in the medical advances that have saved a comparable number of lives. Both statements are true at the same time, about the same species. That reversal has continued in directions nobody expected. In several countries, African giant pouched rats, which are not true rats but are close enough for the point to stand, have been trained to detect landmines by scent. They are light enough that they cannot trigger the mines, and they clear ground vastly faster than a human with a detector. One of them, a rat named Magawa, working in Cambodia, located dozens of mines and other explosives over a 5-year career and was awarded a gold medal for animal bravery in 2020. The same training approach is used to detect tuberculosis in sputum samples, faster and cheaper than standard microscopy in settings where laboratory capacity is limited. Meanwhile, research into rat cognition has been steadily dismantling the assumption that they are simple animals. Rats have been documented freeing trapped companions from restraints even when there is no reward for doing so, and even when doing so means sharing food they could have eaten alone. They appear to demonstrate metacognition, meaning they can assess whether they know something before committing to an answer. They can be taught to operate small vehicles. They laugh, in a sense. Rats produce ultrasonic vocalizations during play, and when tickled, at a frequency far above human hearing, and they will actively seek out more of it. This is the animal we historically drowned in pits for entertainment. In cities today, the relationship is exactly where it has always been. New York City's rat population is frequently claimed to be 1 rat per resident, around 8 million, which is a myth that traces back to an offhand estimate from 1909. The more careful analysis, based on actual sampling of city lots, puts the figure closer to 2 million. That is still an enormous number of rats, and the city employs a dedicated bureaucracy to deal with them, including a director of rodent mitigation, a position that received global press coverage, largely because the job description was unusually blunt about the mission. Every major city on Earth runs some version of the same program. None of them has ever won. And the reason none of them has ever won is the thing this entire story keeps circling back to. The rat is not an invader, it is a mirror. Rat populations track human food waste, human density, human construction, and human sanitation with almost mathematical precision. Where a city manages its garbage well, rat numbers fall. Where it does not, they rise. A rat infestation is not a wildlife event, it is a report card. Every single thing that makes a rat successful is something we built and something we discard. We created continent-spanning food storage. We created ships and railways and shipping containers. We created sewers. We created subway systems. We created the modern restaurant district. And we created the several 100 million tons of food waste that human beings throw away every year. The rat simply moved in and did the obvious thing. Look at the full arc. An unremarkable Asian rodent followed the invention of agriculture into human settlements, and then rode our trade routes to every landmass on Earth. It was blamed for the largest pandemic in European history, a charge that modern research suggests was at minimum badly oversimplified, and quite possibly aimed at the wrong culprit. It genuinely did drive island species to extinction on a scale few animals have matched. It was hunted for bounties, killed for sport, and written into every human language as a synonym for betrayal, filth, and cowardice. And then we brought it into our laboratories, standardized it, and used it to build modern medicine, and it turned out to be intelligent, capable of empathy, trainable enough to clear minefields and diagnose disease, and roughly as emotionally complex as animals we keep as pets. 200 million deaths on one side of the ledger, and an incalculable number of lives saved on the other, from the same animal, within the same few centuries. There is no other species with a record like that. So the next time you see one, and in a city you eventually will, understand what you are actually looking at. Not vermin, not an intruder. You are looking at the most successful mammal on the planet after us. An animal that has spent 10,000 years doing nothing more complicated than following us around and eating what we leave behind. It lives in our walls because we built the walls. It thrives on our waste because we produce the waste. It has never once needed to conquer anything. It just waited for us to build the world and then moved in. If this story surprised you, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me which part you never knew, and give the video a like so more people can find it. There is another one coming, and it is already on its way.